Just got the truck set up here. First ever four-door Bronco.
See, it's gonna probably work better.
These 30-inch tyres. So stay tuned to the channel for that.
Okay, so it's not so much of a warning towards Ford, but I just want to be very, very firm with them that they have so much on their shoulders right now in regards to the next generation 2022 Ranger and how damn good it needs to be. So since 2012, they've had the T6 platform, they've had one generation of a face update basically. They've had a lot of models come off that generation. I originally had a 2012 PX Ranger, so I didn't have XLT or anything like that. Basically because I like to buy the base model and then build it up from there. I think you get better value for money. So since that time, with the previous generation Ranger, they've had XL, XLT, they've got FX4, they've got FX4 Max, they also got the Raptor, and then I think there's a couple of other versions in there if I've forgotten, but those are basically the models that they've had over that time. The FX4 Max being their most recent Ranger update, giving you basically a lot of benefits of the Raptor, not so much the jumping and pure off-road that the Raptor gives you, but the FX4 Max that was released just this month, giving you good Fox suspension, but giving you that good payload and also giving you good heavy towing for the guys that still want to tow but want that sort of semi-Raptor performance with having better suspension. So Ford's current model weighs so heavily on their Ranger sales because I don't think anything in their lineup gives them the leverage that the Ranger actually does. So, like, they have their whole SUV range, but to me, the Puma and their Escape, they're no longer SUVs. Like, it's a sports utility vehicle is what SUV stands for, and these SUVs they're just city cars. The only one they have is the Ford Everest. So I'm just on Ford's website now looking through their current lineup. So with their SUV lineup, they currently have three models. That's all they have: the Puma, the Escape, and the Everest. I think they need another one, and we're going to get into that later in the video. Ford has next to nothing that actually can keep their head above water without the Ranger. And that's scary to me that Ford is so heavily reliant on the Ranger, and they need to get the next generation so damn right it's not funny, because with Hilux, D-Max, everyone's currently stepping up their game. The next generation Ranger, I'm pretty sure, is going to be with Volkswagen. So it's going to be basically what Ford did with the Mazda, but now Mazda's gone to Isuzu. Ford and Volkswagen are teaming up. So there's a lot of stuff online, a lot of speculations from a lot of different car media companies and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to get into any of that because it's so hit and miss on what kind of comes out. So this is what I think Ford should do. So I think they should, if they're getting enough sales in those smaller sedans, then keep them if they're viable. If they're not, just let them go. Like, Ford manufacturing is now stopped in Australia, so there's no more Falcons, none of that. That's all gone. All their sedan base is basically gone. They've just got the Fiesta and the Focus. That's all they have left. SUVs. They need a bigger SUV, I believe. I believe Ford Australia needs to bring the Expedition here. Get it tested for Australian conditions and all the rest of it. And have that above the Everest. Or I think they need an XL version of the Everest, so with a longer rear end. So basically, like they do in the States, like they have a shorter. You can get the shorter, more compact, full size SUV, or you can get the longer XL version. I believe they need an XL version of their Everest. The Everest is selling well for them. Base that next platform of the Everest on the next generation Ranger is probably what they're going to do. So that Everest was actually a Ford Territory chopped in half and the T6 first generation PX, and they basically just mashed them together to create the Everest. So I believe we have the room for a larger SUV in Ford's lineup. And like some of the American SUVs do, I like it how they give you the option to either have a three-row behind the driver's seat, or you have two captain's chairs either side, and then you have a pass-through, a walk through the center, and you walk into the back area, the back three row of seats. So I think that the Expedition would do really well. If they could have, I don't know if they keep the Escape. I don't know about the Puma, like those ones. I don't really see too many of them on the road. But definitely have the Everest. I'd definitely love to see the Bronco come to Australia. That would be awesome. And then also have a larger one like the Expedition. I think would sell really well for the whole touring market here. But even just with larger families, like you have a larger family in an Everest. My mate just bought a Ranger. He was looking at an Everest, but there just wasn't enough room in those things. And that's why I think that Ford either needs to bring the Expedition or makes an XL version of the Everest with a larger rear end on it. Maybe extend the whole rear end by, I'm talking probably close to half a meter, extend that whole rear end so you have an XL version of that vehicle as well with a longer wheelbase for larger families. Run two captain's chairs in the center that walk with a walk-through to the rear seats, and then having all that extra storage in the back there as well. So I think an XL version of the Everest would do well. If not, just bring the Expedition, test it for Australian conditions, and I think you could be on a winner there, having that bit bigger SUV as well available. So for Ford's ute or truck-based platforms, I think they need to have the Ranger as their base ute, then move up to an F-150, and then have maybe, if it's custom import, F-250s, or if they work in with a company like VDC or someone like that, to have factory-backed optioned F-250s available from the dealer, I think would be really good. They could up the production then through VDC and have them as a factory-backed vehicle here in Australia, similar like what they did in like 2004, but they obviously had them built in Brazil. They were Brazilian right-hand drive trucks, but if they could work in and try and bring the cost down with an Australian converter, I think that could be a good idea. To then be able to sell F-250s, even 150s if we can't get a right-hand drive one, but I can't see why we can't. Like, shit, I think you'd sell a lot more F-150s in Australia than Mustangs. So how can you justify a right-hand drive Mustang over an F-150? That doesn't make much sense to me, but again, I don't run Ford, but I think you'd sell a lot more F-150s than you would Mustangs. So I also think that Ford needs a XL version of their Ranger. And I'm not talking trim level, I'm talking chassis extension. So basically having a 350mm chassis extension. And the one that comes to mind would be Ultimate Stretches. So I had my Ranger stretch by those guys down in Sydney. Did a 350mm extension on my Ranger and put the space cab tub on the dual cab. So, and it tows so much better, it drives so much better, so that could be another option as for Ford as well, to give a factory 350mm chassis extension available. And a lot of guys do it straight from the dealer, like those guys at Ultimate Metalworks, Brad down there, he has brand new Rangers come into his shop to get extended with 0Ks on them, so I think there'd be a good option there for Ford as well to do longer chassis as an option. Basically, just going over a brief look at Ford's current lineup, it's basically the SUV range, Escape, Puma, and the Everest. I believe they need to have an Expedition there, or even a XL version of the Everest, something a bit bigger. Possibly the Bronco, that'd be sick. You've got Ranger, Ranger Wild Track X coming soon. The FX4 Max that's just been released. I don't know what the Wild Track X is, that's interesting. Custom, Transit Van, Transit Bus, Transit Cab Chassis, Transit Commercial Range, Performance, Fiesta ST, Focus ST, Ranger Raptor, Mustang, Mustang R-Spec, Mustang Mach 1, and Ford Performance, obviously selling engines and stuff. Special edition vehicles, you've got special edition Rangers and special edition Everests. I have not seen that. I'm going to click on special edition Everests. So the website says the Australian Seeking Everest Base Camp Special Edition. So that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that yet. But again, they're just not big enough. It just needs to be a little bit bigger. So you must get a bunch of different accessories in that: tow bar, snorkel. You get an awning, nudge bar, LED light bar. Looks like a roof rack. So that's pretty cool. So I haven't seen that yet. So base camp. But there's just not enough storage capacity in the back of those Everests. They're so... When they were building one, I was so excited when they were building the Everest. I was like, hopefully they have a good... They basically need to be the silhouette of a Ute, but if you were doing like, I guess, a tub canopy setup on your basically Ranger, but having that step through and stuff, like obviously you're not going to have a tub or anything, but having the same length and that same style, squared off, nice big squared off back end. I don't like the back end on the Everest, the current one. It's real rounded. I don't think it suits the front of the vehicle. The front's very squared off and it's very aggressive. The back's just kind of a bit of a flop. So definitely needs a bigger rear end on that car and a little bit longer wheelbase. But you could have both, have an option. So have a longer wheelbase version and have a shorter wheelbase version. So I think the Everest sales would have done a lot better if they didn't have that one burned to the ground on the side of the road, due to that apprentice mechanic, I believe it was, actually put the battery in wrong. So yeah, and it earthed out apparently and caught fire. But that did give the Everest a bad name in the beginning. All that's obviously gone now, and I believe people are open-minded to going and driving one and test driving one, and I think they should, because they're actually a nice vehicle to drive. So, but would I consider an Everest for my family? Probably not, just because there's not enough room in the back of it. They're just too small. And I just had that conversation with one of my mates. He just bought a 2-litre XLT Ranger, white one, black wheels and stuff. It's a really nice truck. But he was looking at an Everest, but again, there wasn't enough room in the back of that thing to do groceries, throw a pram, this, that, and to have somewhat of a setup for touring, such as a drawers and maybe a fridge, and also be able to throw a bunch of stuff in there as well on a day-to-day basis. There just isn't the room. So I think Ford could improve on that a bit, to have a longer wheelbase version of the Everest. So the direction that I think Ford Australia should go, just do a bit of a wrap up, is that I believe the next generation Ranger needs to be seriously on point. They need to listen to exactly what the market wants. I think they need to improve on a few things on the Ranger. So I think they need a longer wheelbase version. I think they need more engine options. I think the Raptor needs a twin-turbo V6 option. But it needs more, and they've just done all that with the FX4 Max. I love the switches that they've just added to the dash. That's something that I did mention in my past videos, especially on my review of the Raptor. There is nowhere to add accessories. And if you buy a vehicle like that, you're 90% going to add accessories to it. So I love that they listened on that. You now have auxiliary switches on the dash, so you can just wire them up pre-wired, all the works. So that's awesome. Yeah, more engine options, longer wheelbase version. As for the SUV range, I think if the Everest is selling well, I haven't looked at the stats on the Everest sales, but if it's selling well, keep it. Maybe offer us a XL version, so a longer wheelbase with a longer rear end, like they do in the States with most of their SUVs. You can get the short one, or you can get the longer version one for people that have more kids, more rooms. Do the 2 captain's chairs with the pass-through, walk through to the 3-row at the back. I love that setup in the States when I go there. My mate has a GMC that has that option. The kids just jump straight in, run into the back seat. 2 captain's chairs, really comfortable, like sitting in the front. So do that. if you're not going to do that, keep the Everest, but then maybe offer the Expedition, and the Expedition already has those options with the seating and stuff. And the Bronco, I'd love to see the Bronco here. That would be absolutely awesome. And then finally, I say it in a lot of videos when I talk about Ford, is that I believe there is room here for the F-150 and the F-250, and then maybe custom orders over that if you want a 350 or a dually. But if they can't justify it through a factory over there to get it through the factory, then I'd suggest Ford Australia look at someone like VDC and go in with partnership with them to get them to do the conversions. Basically like how Ram Trucks US backs the Australian converted ASV ones. Get on board with VDC and have those F-150s, F-250s sold through dealers. I think the F-150 would have more of a base to come here over the F-250. I think Ford would consider that more than an F-250. So even if the VDCs are done, F-250s, F-350s are done through them and then sold in Australian Ford dealers, I think that could be an option for Ford as well. That way they're like factory backed and they get servicing done at all Ford dealers and stuff like that. But then I think Ford should still push the case to Ford in the US to get the F-150 done in right-hand drive, because they did the Mustang. There's no reason why they can't do the F-150. I think they'd sell a lot more F-150s than they ever would Mustangs, and the Mustang sales are dying, so it could be a way to then pick those sales back up. But again, I'm not in Ford's shoes, but I just think that their whole model here is so heavily reliant on that Ranger sale that without it, I don't think they'd exist. So I think they should move towards the trucks, move towards building their SUV, maybe having a bigger SUV in their lineup. Anyway, that's a wrap up on what I think Ford direction should be in Australia. UTES, SUVs, go hard at it, go heavy at it. And yeah, I think we do need another SUV in the lineup. And Ford, you really need to get the next generation Ranger on point, 110%. It needs to go good, look good, have plenty of options for accessories and stuff like that, and be well able to be customized, as what all us tourers and four drivers do. So it's all in your court now, Ford. Hopefully we see the next generation snapshots of the 22 Ranger coming out very soon. So yeah, that's my take on Ford Australia. But anyway, guys, till the next one, I'll catch you later. See yous.